In this video, we're going to look at how to calculate the determinant of a matrix. So we're not going to so much look at the possible uses for a determinant or its purposes. We're just looking at how to calculate it. So first off, we always calculate the determinant for a square matrix, meaning this is right here is a 2 by 2 matrix. We can calculate the determinant for a 3 by 3 or a 4 by 4, but it will always be a square matrix. And here's kind of the structure of it. The determinant, if I have my elements kind of arranged like A, B, C, D, it will be the product of AD minus the product of BC. In other words, it will be these two values multiplied minus these two values multiplied, okay? And so here's an example. If I wanted to find, let's call this matrix A, and I wanted to find the determinant of A, that would be the product of 1 and 12, so I'd do 1 times 12, and then I would subtract the product of these two elements, negative 2 times 5. So if I were to do that math, the determinant of A would be 12, looks like minus, actually should I be color coded here? Let's go 12 minus negative 10, which in effect would be 12 plus 10, or 22. So the determinant of this matrix, the determinant of matrix A, is 22. Now, for a 2 by 2, you can see that's pretty straightforward. That's not hard at all. But let's look at how to find the determinant of a 3 by 3. And this is the largest matrix I would ever expect you to find the determinant of. You can find it by hand for a 4 by 4, 5 by 5, so on, but it gets really cumbersome. And so you can see that I have this matrix C right here, and it's a 3 by 3. And I've got the same matrix copied 3 times, and that's just helpful for me, and you'll see why in a minute. And so here is what we're going to do to find the determinant of this whole thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 6 up here in the top left, and I'm going to multiply that by the determinant of this square matrix. So I would multiply that times 5 times negative 8 minus 0 times 4. You see I treated this little matrix, or this little part of this matrix, as if it were its own little determinant problem. I did 5 times negative 8 minus 0 times 4. That's a times symbol, okay? And so that's going to become 6 times, let's see, 5 times negative is negative 40 minus 0, because that's negative 40 and that's 0. So that's the first part. But then we're going to move over here, and we're going to subtract this. I'm going to take my 1. So I start with the 6, then I'm moving to the right to the 1, and I'm going to find the determinant of these, of the numbers that are left. Okay, I'm going to use those like they're a little square matrix. So I'm going to do minus 1 times 3 times negative 8 minus 0 times negative 2. I know my notation isn't great there, but you can get the idea. So, oops, I copied that in the wrong spot. Okay, so I fixed that and cleaned it up a little bit. So we'd have minus 1 times, it looks like negative 24 minus 0. So that would just be a negative 24 in parentheses. And hopefully you can kind of see the pattern and you see where we're going. Then for this last part, we're going to take this 2, and then we're going to treat this like it's its own matrix and find the determinant of that. But now we're going to add again. Notice it's positive, minus, and then another positive, okay? So plus 2 times, let's do 3 times 4. Oops, did I write that in the wrong row again? Let me back up a little bit. Plus 2 times the determinant, and we're going to go 3 times 4 minus 5 times negative 2. And just to do the math on that, that's going to be 12 plus 10. I believe that's going to be 22. And now we've got a little simplification to do. Right here, that's going to be negative 240. This is going to be plus 24. And this is going to be plus 44. And so just to do the math on that real quick, I get that all of that equals negative 172. So I'd have that the determinant of C is negative 172 would be our answer to that. Once again, this video we're not going to really talk so much about how to interpret that or why it's important. I just want you to be able to calculate it. And since that process of finding the determinant for a 3 by 3 is so much more complicated than a 2 by 2, I've put one more up here to practice with. Let's oops, let me back up. Let's go ahead and name this matrix. I'm going to name this matrix, I don't know, K, because why not? So I want to find the determinant of matrix K. Let's find the determinant of K. And so what I want you to pause the video and try to find this determinant on your own. And then I want you to hit play and see if you got what I got. But here I go. Okay, so to start, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this first value. It's going to be my -3. And I'm going to multiply it by the determinant of the values that are not in its row or column. So I'm going to find kind of the determinant of this. So it's going to be 4 times 2 minus 10 times 8. And then I'm going to move on and do the same thing. And I just kind of copied the matrix over a couple more times. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to cross out the values in its row and column. And remember, now we're going to subtract 1 times the determinant of these. So that's going to be 3 times 2 minus 10 times 5. And then lastly, we're going to add, and we're going to do the same thing with this. Oh, that's beautiful. Good job, me, for putting a 0 there, because that makes our math easy. It's going to be 0 times stuff, which doesn't really matter because that's just a big old 0. And now let's do our simplification. And so I'll just do the math real quick. Okay, and after I simplify, I end up with the determinant of this 3 by 3 matrix of matrix K, as I called it, is going to be 260.